Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Andrew Clyde, a member of the House Appropriations Committee. Congressman, good to see you. Can you tell us a little about these meetings and what the buzz is in Washington over this?
Well, good morning, Maria. Well, I'll tell you straight up, the Democrats are in disarray. I mean, you can clearly see that the country has now witnessed the cognitive state of the president because of the debate between Biden and Trump. And the Democrats, their hair's on fire. So I think it's just interesting to see that they're actually having to respond to real questions about the competency and the mental capacity of the current president. We'll just see what happens. But I think Joe Biden's made his decision already. The Democrats just don't want to accept it.
So do you think he's going to be the nominee? He will be the nominee then?
Well, as of right now, he's the nominee. And you know, I believe there's a wave coming that's only going to get stronger. Whether he's the nominee or not, I couldn't tell you, but right now he is, and I think that's going to continue.
Let me ask you about the business in the House. The House passed the SAVE Act this week, a bill requiring proof of citizenship to vote in federal elections. But nearly all Democrats voted against the bill, 198 Democrats voting against the bill. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries claims that this bill is designed to prevent Americans from voting, Congressman.
Oh, no, it's appropriately named Safeguarding Americans' Voter Eligibility. I mean, I got to admit, this is an incredible piece of legislation. I got to give a shout out to Chip Roy, the author of it, and to Mike Lee, the Senate lead on it. But this particular piece of legislation is so critical to make sure that only American citizens determine who our representatives are. I mean, that's just common sense. But yet 198 Democrats said no. Now we had 5 that said yes and voted with us. So it was passed in a bipartisan way. But this is critical for Americans to retain our republic.
Yeah, but, you know, the White House says it's not needed, and we know that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has already said that he's vowing to stop any voter ID. So where does this go?
Well, voter ID is critical as well. I mean, we require ID for so many things, to get on an airplane, to buy a firearm. I mean, voter ID is absolutely essential because we cannot allow illegal aliens and those who are not American citizens to vote in our elections. It's illegal, and we have to have the means and the mechanism to show whether you're a citizen or not.
Well, I'm with Mahek Cook this morning, and she has a story that you'll want to hear, and I'd like to know how these things happen. Mahek, tell us what you know.
So, Congressman, thank you. I wanted to talk about how there is an individual today, a Canadian, that has been living in the United States for over 60 years. He's a Florida resident today. He has been in our country. He has claimed, his name is Jimmy Class. He's been voting, paying taxes, and it was only after he asked for Social Security that he was denied because he's not a U.S. citizen. Here's a blatant example of a well-intended man that thought he was a U.S. citizen. This system can easily be exploited by good people like Jimmy, who has broken the law. He has made it very, very public. So talk a little bit about people that are going to Social Security today and asking for Social Security and being denied. Have we done a public records request on that to determine how many other individuals think they're U.S. citizens and can collect Social Security? Here's a prime example.
Well, I think that he knows whether he's a citizen or not. I mean, either you know, you've raised your hand and you've declared United States citizenship, gone through the proper process of it. I mean,
Congressman, it's more than that, okay? We understand, but we want to know what you're going to do about it, okay? We are just a few months away from an election, a presidential election. The American people have been hurt by these bad policies. We all want a fair, transparent election. Will we get it?
Well, we absolutely want a fair election. The American people deserve it, and it's up to our government to give our people a fair and free election. And voter ID is an essential part of it. And for Attorney General Merrick Garland to say otherwise, and he actually said otherwise to me in an Appropriations Committee hearing, is absolutely unacceptable. But it just goes to show you that the Department of Justice will not enforce the federal law. Again, showing the double standard here that the Department of Justice brings forth.
Let me get your take on what's going on in the House with regard to all of these subpoenas. The House is subpoenaing people over who knew what when with Joe Biden and his mental capacity issues, but the Democrats are fighting back. New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has filed 3 articles of impeachment against Supreme Court justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, charging that their, quote, unchecked corruption is threatening American democracy. AOC claims the justices failed to disclose gifts that could have impacted these rulings, Congressman.
Well, I'll tell you, what Ocasio-Cortez has filed, that's going nowhere. Absolutely not. And it's pretty rich, actually, when you have Merrick Garland refusing to comply with the legitimate subpoena. And that's why you have him a resolution of contempt on the floor. And now you have a second one. And my amendment in Appropriations Committee that reduced his salary to $1 until he fully complies with the subpoena of both the Oversight and the Judiciary Committees. I mean, we're clearly seeing a double standard that is trying to protect the Department of Justice, trying to protect President Biden so that the country does not see the extent of his cognitive state. But I think the debate proved that, and now the Democrats, again, are in disarray over it.
Well, no wonder he was in the basement the whole time in the last election, Congressman. We'll keep spotlight on all of that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, Andrew Clyde joining us this morning.